All right, everyone, welcome back. Day 2 of the 21 Convention Europe, the men's conference of the century. Now, coming up next is a man that usually speaks about game, and today we've got a real treat for you since he's going to share his expertise in selling and business, and he's got a work ethic that I could personally say is unparalleled and I've never seen before. And I call him a friend, and hopefully you guys can as well. Welcome to the stage, please, Steve Mayeda.
Yes. Cheers. What's up, man? All right. So, my name is Steve Mayeda, and this is the 4th convention that I'm speaking at. And let me just say how this all came about. I just got off of a plane, and I've been having this pretty amazing experience. If you guys all want to follow me on Facebook, I'll give you that information in a second. But it's really amazing time. I came to Europe. It's been 3 years since I've been to Europe, and basically been living the sexual life, which is the website that you can find out all my stuff on, thesexuallife.com, or my blog is theredmole.com, and facebook.com/themayeda, M-A-Y-E-D-A. And it's been truly amazing. And coming to the 21 convention is an absolute honor for me. Like I said, in, 2008 was my first speech. The first one was in 2007, so I've just missed one. And it is a convention that has evolved into what this community has been about. It started out as mainly talking about dating, relationships, women, pickup, all that fun stuff, all the stuff that men are interested in. And then it shaped into this stuff about fitness and health. And in fact, as I saw the people come back, from DC and Atlanta and the different places, I saw people come back to the convention and they were getting these results. I knew a guy, one of my clients actually had a heart transplant. He read a bunch of Doug McGuff stuff before when Anthony was just talking about it. And, got back to better health, started doing the paleo diet, Mark Sisson stuff. And that was the stuff that was impacting people the most. And then Anthony started to put in, things about business, and it really exploded into this amazing event. And there's this great culture to it. So pretty much what happened earlier today is one of my better friends, DJ Fuji, who is one of the best pickup coaches of all time, and I've worked with them all. He got sick and he had to transplant a spot around, and so Anthony was like, oh man, Anthony Johnson was a little bit stressed out because he puts his life into this thing, and it's Anthony, Mike, and Peter, and Matt, and all these guys, and they really kick ass at it. And I may not be the best guy at emailing out all the time and all that fun stuff, but if I can give anything to this convention, man, I'm going to do it. It's just hands down, and I think the guys know that who are involved. So basically what I'm going to talk about is something about selling. So who here in the audience is in business, wants to know more about selling, all that fun stuff? So just a few, come on, we're all shy. Who here wants to start a business? Okay. One of the things that was one of the better fortunes about me being in this whole industry was in 2006, I got in it, and I started teaching in the pickup industry, and clients just came to me, right? There was so much of an availability about it, there was a lot of this secrecy to it, and people were interested, and I ran with a really good crew. Captain Jack, one of the best guys of all time, was the guy that pretty much took me under my wing. We were posting all this stuff. Then Sinn moved to Dallas, we were posting all this stuff, and everybody's reading online, and everybody wanted to learn about us. The term SNL, Same Night Late, comes from Captain Jack. It didn't exist. They thought it was impossible or a fool's maid or some shit like that before. And I didn't know how to sell, but I had an immediate market to experiment with. And that is like the perfect mix, but I needed to know how to sell. And I'll tell you this, in the 5 years that I've been in business, 3 of those years, I've sold over $80,000 and to $120,000. In one of those years, a year and a half ago, I only sold $33,000. And in that whole time, I needed to learn how to restructure and really focus on how to sell and how to sell myself. A lot of the stuff that Matt was talking about here on stage, and that's kind of why I'm doing this speech. I'm just kind of improvising a lot of it because I haven't officially spoken about it. But I was really inspired about it because there's a type of selling and ways of selling that you can do that is purely based on emotion. And I'm not talking about NLP, I'm talking about how somebody makes decisions, and I'm talking about how to assert yourself, how to be proud of yourself, and mix the quality that you hopefully already have and be able to put that into somebody's life so by the end of it, they're going to be basically waiting to pay you money. They're going to wonder how they can sign up. And I run a different type of business. I run a service type business. And just to put things in perspective, like I said, a year and a half ago, I wasn't doing so well. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that. You know, you could say the economy, you could say, you know, personal stuff going on, but really what was happening was it all had to do with my belief. Now, I knew it was good. I knew I had sold before, 3 years prior, quite well, and I was going through a lot of changes and all that stuff. And actually, the 21 Convention is a perfect metaphor for those things because I can tell you year to year the personal changes that happened in Orlando when I was speaking. But this year, just to share, we're at what, month 6, 5? I can't do math that well. June? One of those. It's the 6th month, and already this year I've made one, and this is more of what I've been known for, one $100,000 sale. I've made multiple $20,000 sales, and that has nothing to do with a little trick or a technique or a sales system or anything like that. Now, those things are all good. Those things are all great, but I just didn't choose to run my business that way. And one of the reasons why is you can have two types of businesses, and there's a lot in between, right? So there's a product type business, right? So there's this type business, and then there's this type business. Service, right? So the differences between those are, you know, the 21 Convention is a product. If you're hiring me to personally work with you, that's a product. But it implements more service than product. Now, let's take the opposite extreme from, like, you know, what I'm doing is I heavily offer a service, whatever you know about me and all that fun stuff, but I heavy offer service. That's me interacting with you. If one-on-one, that's the best. Small groups, it never goes to a large group, but, you know, that's how service-oriented I am. Now, a lot of guys who are teaching, you know, anything in personal growth, in, you know, pickup or whatever, they're still service-based, you know, but they might do 16 guys at once, but still that's a heavy service. When you get into stuff like product, what would that be? That would be stuff like, you know, food. Those would be things like, you know, yes, cars. Your cell phone is kind of somewhere in the middle. It's like a little bit of product and service, but you see how it's more like, hey, we're gonna look at the functionality of it. We're gonna look at what works and all that fun sort of stuff. When we get into service, there's a little bit of a different mechanism that allows people to buy and allows people to get your great service. Now, I'm completely against, if you don't have a product to sell, then man, you know, you shouldn't be selling. That's it. You know, and you are going to make mistakes selling, and you are going to make mistakes with your product. You are going to make your mistakes with quality. But if you are dedicated towards quality, you will change and adapt and grow with that. If you don't have that, then work on that first. But if we have product, the main thing that we're going to go off of is price, right? Price, we're going to go off of ease. What else are we going to go off of? We're going to go off of, you know, functionality. We're going to go off that checklist of things that we need, right? Now, when we have service, there's a couple things. There may be, a perfect example is the 21 Convention. Okay, if you go to the sales page for the 21 Convention, I'm not sure what's on there. But if you go there, it's going to say, I don't know how many speakers we have, but I'm just going to say we have 15 speakers, right? We have, you know, 4 days this time, or is it 5 days? I forget. I'm just going to put 4 days. So we have some things listed off, you know, which is kind of that checklist of stuff. But the real sale, when it comes to, okay. Yeah, you know what's funny is, you know, I worked as a light designer in theater forever, and I was looking at that.
Go one thought back and pick up.
One.
No, one thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Apologize for the interruption.
You better. That's Mike, ladies and gentlemen. The best cameraman in the business, except for Matt. But he's not in the room, so whatever. Okay, so basically we take something like the 21 Convention. We have 15 speakers, 4 days. You know, we're in London. All this sort of stuff that we're putting out there. You see many things offered, like you know, whatever workshop, whether it's for business, whether it's for getting better with women. It's like you're going to get this, and that. All right. The difference between what I'm doing and this sort of checklist style of stuff is I am more on the service side. And this is more on the product side. And the more you move in this direction, the more we need to move away from that checklist. You still may kind of need it, but what you need is more of a leap of faith to get there. So in terms of businesses, what is it that I'd like to know, kind of like an overall view of what people are selling and what businesses that you'd like to be in. So who had their hand up? I guess we got to get the microphone, huh? Nobody.
If they say something, just repeat it.
So what type of business, who has a business here? What type of business is it?
I'm an accountant.
Okay, so accountant, that's a good mix of product and service, right? Who else?
I'm a self-employed IT contractor.
Self-employed IT contractor, okay. So again, product and service. Who else?
Web design.
Web design. So is it designer, are you doing more of the programming, or are you doing the...
Both sides, yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah.
Are you the main designer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Personal training.
Personal training. Okay, so that's heavier on the service. So the last two for web design, it's a little bit higher on the service, especially if we're getting more into the design. Personal training, more into the design. And when you get into accounting, definitely somewhere in the middle. And for IT, personal IT consulting, it's definitely in the middle. But what we want to do when we sell these is we want to offer like an absolute reason why these people are going to buy these things. All right. And again, for myself, I sell more high-end things and go for larger clients rather than mass marketing all over the place. So I'm going to actually I'm going to flip this over. I know this wasn't much drawing, but nonetheless, we're going to go over a list of things that need to happen in order to sell something. All right. So the number one thing that this is actually an interesting story. I was in Las Vegas. And I had a client of mine who, his name is Brian Franklin, and I would actually recommend you going to his site. It's brianfranklin.com, B-R-Y-A-N, franklin.com. And he has all sorts of stuff on this, but he is a genius. He works with Eben Pagan on selling and all this sort of stuff and gives seminars all around the country and world, or the U.S. and around the world. But he said, he met with me in Vegas, and I said, man, like how do I get this down? I don't know how to sell. Like I have no idea how to sell stuff, but people want to buy stuff, and it's more like the consumers are defining what I'm selling and all that sort of stuff. And he said, oh man, selling's easy. If you gave me 15 minutes, I could teach you how to sell. And this is a long journey. This was a few years ago. And what he told me is he says, you need to elicit, oh man, what someone wants. And two, you need to show how you can get that for them. And now he told me this. I remember I was in Las Vegas. He didn't have much time, and it was so crazy because this didn't exist in my mindset when I met with him. And I said, man, I just want to know about selling. We go down at the MGM, we sit in a restaurant, we order some food, and he says, oh man, selling's easy. He's like, forget about how you're going to market, how you're going to do all this crazy shit, and just think of this. If you can really elicit what somebody wants, if you can get them to say what they want and get comfortable enough to do that, and he's like, you should be good at it. You're like Mr. Comfort Game Pickup, like at the time in 2008, 2007, that was like the big thing that I was known for. He's like, oh, that'll be easy for you. And essentially just qualify them, or hopefully we're all familiar with these terms. You qualify them, they actually qualify themselves then, they answer back, and then you show them how you can get that for them, how you as a person get that for them. Now what's interesting is when we get into personal training, it's in some ways easier than when we get into IT consulting or when we get into accounting. But a lot of the times when we think about selling, especially for your guys' field, it's like, well, what are the big problems with accounting? What are the big problems that people run into with, when we're, doing some IT stuff, any programming stuff? What are the big problems that we run into? Well, designing a website. And you can all be creative enough to do this. What's interesting about this model is that it'll work, in pretty much any system, just to be aware of that service and product dynamic. But So we elicit what somebody wants. So when we get into a sales conversation, what I did for the next few years, and I started getting these big sales, and I remember I used to, not anymore, but work a lot with Sinn, and he'd always say, man, this guy wants to buy from me. This guy wants to buy from me, and I'll give you a percentage if you can sell him. And I think, you've done these big sales that are like $20,000, and can you come in and do it, and I'll give you whatever split. And that's pretty much what he would do. And I basically would say to the guy, the guy would be sitting down, and I'd do exactly this. And I was kind of improvising it. And I said, hey, man, well, look, you want to hire John and all this sort of stuff. And, you're into, what are you into about him? And, he'd say like, oh, well, I'm really into the bad boyness and the sexually aggressive, and he's really technical. And, he just seems like the god of pickup or whatever and all this sort of shit. And I'd say, man, but what do you really want? Like, really, what do you want? Just really calm like that, It just in a comfortable setting. It didn't have to do with any body language or any tricks with hands or listing anything out. It was like, what is it that you really want? And tell me. And he'd say, no, man, I want to be able to have SNLs, and I want to date multiple long-term girlfriends at once. This is always, I don't know if you can relate with this, psych, or anybody who teaches this stuff. It's always like, I want to get SNLs, and I want to date multiple chicks at once. And and then you always want to say like, man, that's kind of a pain in the ass. but everybody wants that. And so you go, so to me, just in the way I thought was, man, that wasn't enough that they were giving me. That wasn't enough. It wasn't that they were truly eliciting what they'd want. They were eliciting what they wanted when they read the pickup advertisement, all right? It's like, man, I'm reading all this stuff that Captain Jack's writing or Sinn's writing or whoever's writing, and it's like, man, I want those things. And so I'd say, no. Why is it that you want that? Like, really, what is it that you want? And they'd start to get into it, and they'd say, well, look, man, I came up from a breakup, and they'd start talking about themselves, right? They'd start talking about who they really were and why they wanted this. And I'd say, well, what does it look like? What does it look like if you kind of had whatever it is you were going for, whether it was the confidence or whether it was, what they wanted from women, what they wanted to feel from women, or what they wanted to feel from being able to be dominant or whatever. And as soon as they said that, I'd just move right to this, right? And I'd just say, hey, so look, I've had multiple clients like this before, especially if I was selling for John or anything. We've had multiple clients like this before, and it's pretty easy. If you just do the work, like I can guarantee you that you'll get there. If you do what we say, and really put your effort into it, I can guarantee you that will be your life. And a lot of people think about this stuff as they think, man, you're doing some NLP trick or some shit like that and going through some like ladder decision-making process. No, it's much simpler than that. And in fact, if you only think in terms of NLP, you're going to limit yourself towards it. Because when it comes down to it, you actually make a connection with somebody, and you make a heavy connection with somebody, especially a potential client, the sky's the limit on what you can do. And what you're going to learn is you're going to stop selling on one thing, and you're going to sell for a continuous thing. You're going to sell on a continuous brand for yourself, especially weight training. So what's a typical thing? Like if you were to ask me, I could get in better shape. I'll repeat it since we don't have the microphone. Where's Peter Murphy when you need one? But what's a typical thing in terms of personal training what's a discussion you might have with me?
People want six packs, left, right, and center.
Okay. So I come to you and I say, what's your name?
Rick.
Rick. Okay, go ahead and hand him the mic. But Rick had said, I asked him about personal training, and Rick said, hey, people want six packs. So Rick, I come to you and I say, Rick, go ahead and give him the mic. Damn you, Anthony. All right, we got it. So I say, Rick, look, I want to get in better shape, but really, I want to have a six-pack, and I don't know, I want all the ladies to look at me and to look in the mirror and not look like some slouch that eats too much carbs. So what do you say to that?
I say, I can get you there.
Yeah. So what you want to do, though, is start thinking about it in this way. And this actually goes a little bit more towards what I learned more from Brian, especially this last year when I started making really heavy and massive sales, is he says, instead of just this, there's more of an emotional process to it. Now, because I had done so much pickup stuff and I was more into comfort and have so much experience like with counseling and stuff like that, I knew that people were making an emotional decision. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to add some things to this. And it's best if we interact with whoever wants to, whether it goes from accounting to IT stuff to design and whoever else wants to join in, kind of how this works, because you'll get the methodology. But basically, it's these two things. So what we want to do is we want to go through an emotional process, right? Okay, so we want to go through this, and we want them to make a decision towards us, but our first step is, well, we'll start here. Okay, now remember when I was saying we basically want to elicit what that person really wants, all right? So we need to talk less, and this is important, less about how we're going to get the six-pack abs, how we're going to get you in shape, how you're going to get motivated, less about the specific techniques, especially if it's more service-oriented, less about that checklist that we're talking about, and we're going to talk more about them, all right? But we want to talk more about them in a specific way, in a way that is influential to them, all right? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get curious, all right? So basically what you're going to say, Rick, is you're going to say like, hey, well, I'm curious, why is it that you really want that? All right? So if I come to you and I say, Rick, man, I need to get in better shape. I mean, fucking whatever it takes. Yeah, I want to be buff. I want to cardio, blah, 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 blah. But basically, I want to have a six-pack. Can you do that for me?
Why do you want that?
Yeah, so the Peter Murphy with the mic, what the fuck, man? So Rick basically said, why do you want that? But I would say, okay, cool. Yeah, you know, that's something I've done before, but I'm curious as to why you want that, all right? And that's where it's got to have a little bit more of a calm tone to it, rather than just like, hey, why do you want that? And I don't know if any of you guys have been here with selling something when the buyer is actually running the seller. You don't want that, right? When you're going like, hey, man, I can offer this, and I can change your life. And they're like, well, look, but I don't know, you know, how many times have you done that? Can you show me a list of reviews and da-da-da-da? Now, those are legitimate questions, but we don't want to get in that mode. I have no problem showing people a list of reviews. I have no problem answering those questions, but we want to lead this. Remember, they're supposed to be following us, so we want to learn how to lead this. So we want to say, hey, you know, I'm curious as to why you'd want that. I really want to know. Okay, so even if we're going with web design, what's your name, by the way?
Jacob.
Jacob?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Austria.
Ah, I was just there, man. What city?
Oh, you were the man with the video from the backpack.
Yes, dude. I had so much fucking fun. I was just there this morning, and oh, dude, it was fucking crazy, man. I was in Vienna and Baden and like in the countryside and all that stuff. But then also in Vienna, man, it's fucking. We'll talk, man. We'll talk. What part of Austria are you from?
Yeah, near Vienna.
Yeah.
20 kilometers of Baden away. So,
Really?
yeah.
Man, amazing country. I guess we can talk about that more. I'm giving another speech. We'll bring up all that shit later. Okay, so when you're talking about web design, you know, people say, this is what I say when I want a site. I'm like, hey, I want a site, and I want it to function, and I want it to do what it says it's going to do. Can you do that for me?
yeah, what do you want exactly?
So that's what you would say. Yeah. But then like what I also notice about people who are doing web design and stuff, they're also saying like, you know, the guy will list out what they want, and then you'll do your design, and then they'll say, no, but I want this changed, and I want that changed, and could I try 5 different versions of that font and make the picture of me like 25% bigger, but also give me one that's 75% bigger too? So it's like there's always augmenting things. So you want to be in control of this. So this is definitely more on the product side of things, or it's a little bit in the middle. So you'd say, well, okay, well, I'm curious, what do you want from your function of the site? You know, and if you know that you're confident that you could deliver technically, then you need to know that this is still an emotional decision. Same thing for doing IT, same thing for doing accounting, that at this point, it has to do with how they're going to process the ease of this. You know, so in terms of accounting, they may want, you know, it's pretty cut and dry, right, what you're going to offer. But yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, with accountancy, there's like a need. You're obliged by the law to do certain stuff.
Right.
How does that fit in with wanting, or does that come into a want because they have to do something? You know, they have to put in their tax return.
But what's the difference
to keep
between
out of jail?
Right.
Does that mean that they want their accounts and stuff done because they don't want to be in jail?
Dude, it's so heavy on the product side of things. But what's the difference between you personally doing it and somebody else personally doing it?
We refer to ourselves as the coolest accountants in town.
Yeah.
We're fluent in awesomeness. We're
So-
different because
so
we
what
help
does
build
that
your business
mean?
as well. That's I try to play more on the want because I think that's going to attract the clients
Absolutely.
that I want. But I'm just thinking if it not just accountancy, but there's other things where
So-
people only buy from you because you need, not because you want.
Right. But you want more sales to go your way. And of course, like price and all that sort of stuff it has to do with you. But if you want people to decide for you, then it has to be some sort of emotional decision that's going to lean that way. And if you're saying if you're branding yourself or your firm or whatever it is, I'm not sure, is the coolest accountants in town, you have to really define what that means. And you also have to define what that's going to mean to the person, because that's what you're selling. That's exactly what you're selling. So when you're talking to somebody, how could you bring up, that sense of curiosity? I know it's a little bit esoteric for accounting, but if somebody says like, hey, well, what do you guys offer? Here's my business. Here's what I want to pay. Here's my numbers. I'm basically price shopping for different accountants. So what could you say to that?
Usually, the clients I want to deal with are sort of typical under 30, and they really want to. They're sort of I want to make a real success of my lifetime type of person. Yeah, they want to build a business that's just fucking awesome, not just your everyday sort of business. So I would try and get them. I would ask them some sort of question that would make them suggest that they are that type of person.
So if you know this is your ideal clientele, and you know that you have clientele that's coming in like this, then, man, you could do some great stuff. You could repeat this back, but just repeat it back in a very, structured way. You already know this is the answer that you're going to get to. So you say like, they come to you with accounting, whatever. What did somebody?
Well, I usually say is, okay, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you see your business in 10 years? Where do you want to be as an individual?
Okay, so check this out. Now we want to do this exactly, but we want to say, what does that look like? So it's not just where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself with a six-pack ab? Where do you see yourself with an awesome website? Where do you see yourself, hiring the right or wrong IT guys or whatever? It's more like, what does it really look like to you? Because for me, what's your name? Sean? Sean, yeah. So I would say something like this. A client comes to you and I'd say, well, look, for me, I'm basically somebody that I have a lot of pride in what I do. And accounting can be such an easy thing, but what we do is we make lifestyles with accounting. And we make, somebody be able to not worry about, the stresses of blah, 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 but at the same time, be able to live, the best life that they can possibly have and to have fun at it. And if you have the most technical, paperwork side of a business being handled by people that do that, I guarantee you it'll carry over to you. So what does that look like for you? What does that look like? That's what I would ask the client. So if you were the client, I'd say, Sean, so what does that look like for you?
So like accounting for your success, we take care of all the crap you don't want to do, the filing of your accounts, all that sort of boring rubbish. And then we can focus on working with you to create that, what you're saying, what does it look like?
Exactly. And so have the client describe back to you saying like, hey, what does that look like to you? I mean, 5 years down the road, that's great, but man, if we really worked hard, 3 months, 6 months, what would that look like to you? Because that's basically what we offer, all right? So we want to get more into that mode. So if you were to actually say this in personal training wise, and somebody says like, let's say we go through the mode, we basically say, hey, I really want six-pack abs, I want to get into shape, and you say, hey, well, I'm curious as to why you want that. It's like, well, look, man, I want to look better. It looks cool, da-da-da-da. No, but what do you really want out of it? And for you, it's a little bit more of an emotional decision. What do you really want out of that? Okay, and they say, well, no, I want to be in better shape. I want to look better. I want to basically feel better. And then you ask them, it's like, well, what does that look like to you? What does that lifestyle look like to you? All right, and again, in NLP, they talk about this sort of stuff. Imagine these things, blah 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 blah. But what we really want to do is we want to build a connection with that client, not so much do a trick on them and say like, hey, I'm offering a service. What is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? And as soon as they elicit it, and this is the key point, so as soon as they can actually tell you what that really is, then you go to here. You go to the no-brainer. And I will tell you this. All right, you want to know what made All right, so I learned that like dynamic of like, what is it that you really want? They elicit, and they basically say what it is, and I was fairly good at that, fairly good at improving it, and I'd say, hey, I can get that for you, and that built me a pretty good business. Had a bit of a slump with like tons of personal things, and all sorts of stuff that made me dip down, and then I really started to focus on selling. This is the key component that changed everything for me, and there's a story behind that too. I actually, my friend Brian Franklin, who was one time a client and then started coaching me in this stuff, referred me to a client. And I said, man, you know what? Brian taught me the best selling thing a couple of years ago. He taught me the best thing. And he said, basically say, what is it that you want? And then they say, you say, I can get that for you. And man, it works like a charm, but it's not working so much anymore. And he's like, oh, okay. And this guy was a really successful dude. Very successful. And he has businesses all in the tech industry in San Francisco and whatnot. Very interesting guy and has a good business mindset and also works with Brian. But interesting little family here. And he said, yeah. So why don't you actually talk to them a little bit more and find out what they really want and then kind of describe what the process is like for another client. And he went into all these theories and it really started making me think. And I tried to apply them and it didn't really work that well. So then I called Brian up and I said, dude, this is actually December 2010. So just a few months ago, I said, dude, I need to talk to you. I need to get better at business. My business structure's all fucked up and da-da-da-da. He's like, no, it's not. No, man, you're great at what you do and you're more personalized. You're definitely customized. It separates you from the rest and da-da-da-da. He's like, well, what's going on in your sales process? So I said, man, for the past couple of years, I've been doing the same thing as that you've told me to do. And he added a few things. He added basically this component. He said, oh man, you're not making them make a decision. And that's the key part. So when we go into this and we basically say, we go with the curiosity, hey, I'm curious about whatever, they kind of describe, you say, hey, well, what does that really look like? And when they start to elicit what they look like, and this is where it comes a bit of an art, so you're going to have to know if they're truly invested. And, they're sitting there going, man, that would be great if I could have that lifestyle, where I can just do whatever I want and not worry about those things. If I can have a web design that is basically like, carefree. And again, they're going to want a lot of technical things from you, and actually all of you guys on this side. But at the same time, it's that emotional decision. You say, oh man, that would be great if I didn't have to worry about stuff, or I could come with you in changes and within a week, da-da-da-da. Okay, good. And then you say, well, man, wouldn't it make sense? Wouldn't it make sense that if you could have those things, like if you could have a website that functioned that way, if you could have an IT service that functioned in that way, if you could have an accounting service that functioned to make your lifestyle better, if you could have six-pack abs but also fulfill all the stuff that you really wanted, wouldn't it make sense that if you knew somebody that could get that for you, you would pretty much do it, right? All right? Now notice here, I have not brought up price. Not brought up price yet, all right? Because it has nothing to do with price. It has to do with the decision first. So when we're doing this, it's basically like, hey, what is it that you want? Look, you want to live a sexual life where these things are happening, and yeah, you want to get SNLs, but you really want to be a better man. You want to be a stronger man, and you want to be able to be better with women and basically live a lifestyle that you really like. And if you could have that, kind of like what you just told me, if you could have that right now and you knew somebody that could lead you along that way, wouldn't it make sense that you'd do it? It's kind of stupid not to. In fact, sometimes I just say, man, it's a no-brainer. And as soon as they say yeah, then I say, okay, we go to step 4. How are we going to make that happen? And then this is where your sales funnel comes in. So when we learn about marketing and all that stuff, and one thing that's really interesting is I currently have a client who's the #1 poker player in the world. His name's Dan Cates. He goes by Jungleman12. And there's something interesting in it which has thrown me into this whole scene of poker players. And they're a lot like pickup guys. But in some ways, dare I say it, worse. It's way more crazy because instead of like fronting that they have value, they really do have money. And, and so they're fronting that. It's just bizarre. But one of the things is that another correlation to all this is the internet marketing community. So the internet marketing community is just obsessed with the system and the path and all this sort of stuff, which takes away from the experience, takes away from service. And if you can combine them, that's great. But we see all this internet marketing, we see how polluted it gets with basically not wanting to buy stuff, whether it's fitness or it's pickup or it's self-help. Those are like the three big things, like let's change your life, let's get laid right now, or let's get in shape, all that sort of stuff. And we're gonna do this, and we guaranteed if you buy this video series, you're gonna have a 10-inch long penis, and fuck, you guys see all this sort of shit, and it's bullshit. But we click on the ad, and we watch the current thing is there's a white screen with just words, and they read it. You don't even see their faces, and it goes on for 30 minutes, and we're like, man, we're gonna buy that thing. And it kind of works, but at the same time, it corrupts any sort of change, and it corrupts business for pretty much any speaker speaking at this event. Who, if I don't know them all, but I know that Anthony picks the right guys. They're legitimate dudes. So what we want to do is right here, this is where we want to get into that sales funnel. This is where we want to get into all that stuff that we talk about in marketing, internet marketing, which is so similar with the correlation of poker players, pickup people, and internet marketers. So we're going to say how we're going to make that happen. How are we going to make this happen? But remember, this is a face-to-face decision, right? This is a decision that you're making with a bunch of people or one person right in front of you, but it's live. So we're going to say, hey, man, how do we make this happen? And they may say, at this point, they'll say, well, shit, man, I want to do it. It's really, really interesting, especially if you get these two things down. What does it look like? And hey, wouldn't it make sense, for you to do these things? And they say yes. You say, okay, well, let's do it. How do we make it happen? And what you're looking for here is you're looking for a sense of commitment. How do we make this happen? And if they basically do not say, well, I don't know, I got to think about it, or I got to consult with somebody, then, we take a different route, and we have to basically go back and say, hey, which one of these things could we have done better? It doesn't work 100% all the time. I will also say the key to selling is to be detached from the outcome rather than be obsessed by the outcome, which I didn't include, but remember that. So if it doesn't go right, if they don't make that decision, then we have to lay off, and we have to say, okay, cool, well, think about me, and I know I can do this for you, so let's talk whenever you want. And if you do have a company that does have quality, that's fine. But if they say, well, yeah, I want to do it, yes, I want to do this, and you say, well, okay, well, here's basically what I offer. And this is where you have to get into structure of your business and whatnot. But what's interesting here is it, again, does not matter about price. So here at 5, we do our pitch, right? Now, not everybody has a shitload of money. So you got to do your research, right? But let's say you say, well, look, here's the services that I offer. I have an online program that, is 3 months. And basically it's £995 to sign up, or whatever it is, to sign up. And here's what I offer. And I think this would be, perfect for you. If not, I also have these other services or whatnot. It's probably better to pitch one thing at a time. But at that point, it's again, so much less about money and so much more about what this looks like. So the best way to workshop this and to get you guys to know it, and if you go out and try this right now with whatever sales leads you may have possibly, I guarantee you it will work. But I will say this is if I could have examples and run you guys through this, and you'll process it better. You want to start since we didn't get to you. What's your name? Tal? Go. So your IT business, what exactly is it?
What I specialize in is project management, so I'm not a technical person.
This is actually interesting. Project management, there's like a whole industry around that of people that follow this stuff, but they're all out of San Francisco that I know of. So what service do you really offer in project management? What's a short little sum of it?
Basically, the area that I work in is called the Project Management Office. So we're responsible for ensuring standards and governance on all the projects, basically.
Okay, and so what would be the result of hiring your firm?
It'll be ensuring that projects run to schedule and on time and to standards.
And so what would be the benefits that somebody might have from that?
Cost savings there. Every project also has to have benefits, like a business case first.
So what do you think would be the biggest worry of a potential client that they're having in their own staff? Not necessarily of who they're going to hire, but with their own staff.
It tends to be like a lot of project managers, for instance, are people like developers, testers, who have been promoted to project managers, but they haven't had the formal training. And then what that leads to is like poor quality in terms of reporting and things like that.
Okay, but
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys hear this, but what Tal's talking about, you're talking about a lot of excellent points about your business. However, what happens when there's poor quality? What happens when there's disorganization? What happens is that business will fall apart. And it depends. If you're talking to an executive or if you're talking to an owner, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. But if you're talking to an executive, he may not be as attached to that business. And if you're dealing with a bigger business, it's going to be an executive CEO type. If you're talking to somebody in a smaller business, it's going to be an owner. So what's going to be the big draw? For an executive, it's going to be, hey, you want your business to grow bigger, you want it to build a bigger brand, you want it to function better, and you want more free time for yourself. If it's going to be an owner, that's his life. That's his fucking life. So it's actually an easier sell because it's like, hey, look, I don't want you to worry. What we do is we basically make you not worry. So what's interesting here is you want to get to the emotion, right? And if we really get into this has a lot to do with like kind of more Pickaby type stuff, and I could get into all this sort of stuff. I don't know how I'm doing on time, and I can talk a lot about a lot of crazy shit. Okay, there's basically 7 different emotions. There's happy, mad, sad, hurt, ashamed, afraid, and love, okay? So what we want to do is we want to kind of get to those emotions of what somebody's going to feel, all right? And that's what we want to base our decision off of. Now, because your business is so much product-oriented, and it's a little bit less service, but still it's face-to-face. Still you got to do the work. It's not systematized and all that sort of crazy. It is, but there's people doing it. And it takes your decision-making to do that. What they're going to decide upon is that emotion of, hey, what are you afraid about? What are they really fearful about? I think for a business owner, not having enough time, being stressed out. But you want to say it in a different way. You know how like, I assume everybody in here is kind of like about pickup, and they're like, you want to say these lines, and you're going to qualify, and you're going to say, what are you passionate about? And they're going to say, art. But there's a difference with how you go about the process of saying things so that they can elicit that they really are interested in art and really talking to you about it, so that you could actually say that you like it and that you're attracted to it, and then you can generate some attraction. And what you need to do here is generate that. So you say, hey, I'm curious about, and it's going to be a little bit of a different emotion for an executive, and there's probably more flavor in here than I'm saying, but a little bit different for an executive than a sole proprietor type dude. So I'm really curious about what you're looking for. And what I tend to say is, I don't necessarily say in my services, you could say my services, but say, I'm really curious what you're looking for. Because I want the overall thing. I don't just want, especially if they're hiring me for stuff with sexuality or pickup, I want everything. Because I guarantee you this, if you guys hire somebody, and we have like tons of excellent coaches speaking, they're not just going to help you with going up and having the right lines for women. It'll go all into your entire life. That's it. The thing is that our main draw, it has to do with all that women stuff, But it's going to go into everything about your life. And the more seasoned the instructor, the deeper it's going to go. The better the project manager, the deeper it's going to go. So I'm curious, what is it that, you're looking for in being more organized, or why you contacted me? So you're going to say that, all right? And, they need to elicit a little bit and say, oh, well, it'll be a little bit surface. Same thing for pickup. This is interesting. You can say, what are you passionate about? And they answer. Let's say they answer, but you've only known them for 2 minutes, and they answer like, oh, I'm passionate about saving the world and blah, 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 blah. They're still not fully qualifying themselves because they don't know you. Just like here, they can say, well, look, man, here's A, B, C, D, da, 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 da. Still not fully invested, right? Still not fully invested in you, all right? So you're going to say, okay, I see. That's interesting. You want to be more organized. You want to have more free time. You want to up your business. You want to up your profits. I see how that's happening. It's no problem. That's a map for me. Stuff which you can list out very good. Then you can say, so what if you had all those things? If you basically, could get all those things to be all tied up, what would your business look like? All right. So for an executive, it's going to be more of the brand of the business, more of how the business is going to grow. I think for somebody who owns the business, it'll definitely be that, but it'll be more about his lifestyle or her lifestyle and how that's going to be. So what does that look like? And really you'll know this better than me, but go in those two, you know how to deal with executives, you know how to deal with a company, you know what they're looking for, but really elicit that. What does that look like? Tell me what that looks like. Get them to really sense it and map that out. Not just their ABC of like, well, look, I want to make more money, I want to, cut overhead and blah, 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 blah. So, okay, what does it look like when your company actually does, cut some of the overhead out, your employees work efficiently in these ways, what does that look like? What is your company going to be doing? All right, so really get them to elicit that. If it's a business owner, well, what does that look like for you? What would your life be like? Okay, so your company's running smooth. We've got that all down. What does it look like for you? What does it look like for, your second in command, all that sort of stuff? All right, so we get there. And you know that they really have elicited that. They've truly qualified themselves, all right? So then you go to 3. You say, well, look, I've been doing this for X amount of years, and I've had many clients that have said the same thing as you. And I'll tell you this. Would it not make sense that if you could have those things that you just listed out, and I'm saying realistically, 3 months, 6 months, whatever is realistic, in 1 year, that you could actually have that. You could have a business that would be that, and I would actually say probably be better because I know what we do and I know what we do for people. But wouldn't it make sense that you do something about that, right? And that's a key thing, all right? So you're working off of that emotion. You're working off of that emotional decision. And then if they say yes, and I just, because a lot of times I'll be like, but if you actually say, hey, it's like a no-brainer, you would do that, right? And they say yes or no. Hopefully they say yes. Again, one of the funny things that correlates to pickup is when they say no, it's like we keep plowing. And you shouldn't at that point. You say, okay, well, look, this is what I do. I'm going to leave this with you of what we do. Here's my email. I'll get back to you with whatever, blah, 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 blah. But let's talk. I would really love to do business with you. But hopefully they say, yeah, that does make sense. You say, all right, so how can we make that happen? In fact, a better way to maybe even say it, especially in your case, is like, are you ready to make that happen? Are you ready to do that? All right, when can we do it? They, of course, this is a short one. They should answer right away, and then you give the pitch. And again, the pitch is not determined on money. It should not be. That should happen afterwards, because money it's kind of like people are looking for that price. And in fact, when they might say like, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for. I want to know what your prices are. And again, this is where you're not leading the situation because you want that decision to happen. You say, well, okay, I've a bunch of different services and price lists, but let me ask you, what are you curious about? And we get in that mode, all right? Another thing that could be added to this is before we get into this curiosity, especially in a situation like yours, you might want to say, are you the person that makes the decision for this? So, because oftentimes they might send like a guinea pig out there first, to kind of see what's going on. If it's somebody who is not in command and making the decision, I would not go through this full process with them. Personal training, it's going to be the person. So, who else? Let's do one more, and then we'll take some questions. Nobody wants this golden information. Right here. Yes.
Okay, so I run a 10-day traveling seduction workshop through Eastern Europe.
Okay, so repeat that just for the microphone.
So I run a 10-day traveling seduction workshop through Eastern Europe. It's an insanely awesome service, but it's very expensive.
Take me,
yeah, and it's,
comp me. Okay.
So I would like to know how to reach the guys that have that amount of money to hit it and to really sell.
So to reach the guys, that's the tough thing. I mean, hey man, I'm your competition, but not, I'm not going around Eastern Europe, but to reach the guys, that's the tough thing. So you got to look at marketing for that. And I can't really answer, if I had the sole answer for that, I'd be set. But
Let's go. So I've got a lead. He's curious. Where do we go?
Yeah. So I would actually say it's like, actually, let me know more about your service. So you go through Eastern Europe.
Okay, so
What do basically guys get?
Okay, so they get 10 days traveling on the road through 3 countries.
Great.
Beautiful countries, insanely hot girls, coaching around the clock, very low teacher-student ratio, experience of a lifetime, the kind of stack coaching that's not available over a weekend.
Great. So what would be the experience of a lifetime? What do guys say? How long have you been doing this?
4 years.
Great. So what do guys say right afterwards, and what do guys say 3 or 4 years down the road?
That they feel like they're different people. That's actually changed them as a man from.
You want to know one of the best things when we get to this stuff? I'll give it to you. But so they come to you and they say, oh man, what is your name? James. So they say, James, I saw your thing. I'm really interested about it, but I'm not sure if it's for me. I was looking at DJ Fuji stuff and Psych stuff and Steve stuff or whatever, and it sounds interesting, but you've had this conversation, right? And what you're going to do is you want to lead it, man. You want to lead it, all right? You want to say, hey, look, and especially because it's personalized and it's more face-to-face. You want to say, look, I'm really curious about what brought you to kind of my thing, because it's a unique niche. I'm really curious about it, all right? And so they're gonna remember, or when I was saying in terms of qualification, they're not going to fully qualify themselves because they don't know. They're going to say, oh no, man, it just sounds interesting traveling through Eastern Europe. And they may even wander off to like I just want to be better with women. And I want, they'll go back to their checklist of what they want. I got out of a relationship and it's not going well. And, I just want to be more alpha. And you're going to say, no. Like, I want to know about you, what you really want. So you really got to elicit that. And you should know from having the sales conversation enough to really use your curiosity to go, no, what is it that you really want? And what you're looking for, again, is one of those basic baseline emotions that you can look at. What are they happy about? It doesn't have to all be negative. What are they mad about? What are they sad about? What are the meanings of that? If I say that I'm mad because I got out of a relationship and I feel ashamed because I got out of a relationship and I don't feel like a man, I'm still going to say, well, what does that mean? What does that really mean? Is that it? Is it about being a man? Is it about being more sexual? Is it about having an adventure? Is it about having the time of their life and then also being able to become the man that they've always dreamed about? Oh, okay, that's it. That's what you're curious about. So you may have to work for it, but get towards that. You should get there fairly quick. You should. Spent 4 years, you got some experience with it. So you can say, hey man, what does that look like? And and I know from this business, it's again a qualifier that is not fully materialized for them. We both know, it's like, dude, it's going to turn into this and that. And yeah, man, you may get all the lays and get all the sex and get this beautiful thing, but you're going to actually learn how to have presence. When you walk into a room that you might not need to react into, or whatever it is, But, yeah, gotcha. But you're going to say, what does that look like to you? What does that look like? And you say, oh man, I'll have the greatest women of all time in Eastern Europe and have a great adventure. So no. What would it look like afterwards? And you can even probe a little bit and say, I got guys afterwards and they say it's the experience of a lifetime just because they felt closeness in a way and intimacy and sexually in a way that's raw but at the same time smooth, and so that they can, if they want relationships, they can have, it's across the board. But here's the real thing, is I got guys 4 years later that also tell me this, that it's changed their lives and their work and career. So tell me what that looks like. So, because I know a little bit about the field that you work in, you can kind of probe them like that, because you have that, You have guys right away and you have guys that are hopefully long-term clients. And all they need to do is elicit that and basically say, hey, yeah, I want to have that because I think, my business life correlates to my relationships with women and relationships with people and just relationships with friends even, and the whole social circle. You say, man, wouldn't it make sense that if you had an outlet that could do that, a person that could know you could do that could bring you to that, over 10 days, over a 10-day period, that you would continue to grow afterwards, and I even know the growth cycle, 6 weeks, then 12 weeks, you're going to have these little bumps and bursts and all that sort of stuff. If you could do that, in 10 days from now or 20 days from now, whatever my next thing is, that could all change for you. Wouldn't it make sense to do it? That's what we're really talking about. Wouldn't that make sense? And they should say yes, right? They should say yes. And psych didn't get to him quick enough, or I didn't get to him quick enough. And it's like, man, but Steve told me kind of the same thing, but no, man, this sounds really crazy. Yeah, because that's what they want, really, especially with what you're offering. Say, okay, man, are you ready? Are you ready to make a decision for that? And they should say yes, especially if these two are really quick. It's kind of like when we're dealing with seduction, you can't be like, hey, baby, yeah, and she gets all worked up and, she glazes over and she's like there. You can't go and get a drink then. You got to kind of escalate, right? Or work logistics or whatever. So you got to work this really quick. And then you say, well, look, here's what I'm offering. July 26th, we're going to be going out, and I want you a part of my team. Now, this is another thing. We got to wrap up here because I only have 5 more minutes, or probably less than that right now. When we get into this area and it's not fully gelling, all right? When it's not fully, there's not a full commitment. Here is one of the key things, and I love this, man. And I remember hearing George Stephanopoulos. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he worked with Bill Clinton. He wrote this book about how screwed up Bill Clinton is and all this sort of stuff. But he says, man, he said this in an interview, and it's in the book. He says, man, Clinton had totally screwed me. I was on my way out of the White House. Like, it was done. Everybody knew it was done. And Clinton told me, he said, hey, man, I know we have whatever. I got to give this speech, and I need you by my side. And it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so brilliant, so brilliant. And whenever we hit this point, right, because look, if we have quality, which all of you guys should be striving for that. This isn't like just some bullshit you can sell. You're going to piss people off. You're going to do what the seduction community has done, is pissed people off because it offered empty promises. But if you have quality and you can do this, be proud to do it. Don't be ashamed to sell. And if they're not willing to buy or the price is too much or whatever, you can say, hey, look, you know what? Do whatever you got to do. I talked to you. I heard what you wanted. And look, you're exactly the type of guy I want to work with. And you should mean that. This isn't just some fucking line. It's not like we're going like, hey, you're so hot, I just had to come talk to you. Like, we really want to talk to a girl that is so hot we had to come talk to, right? So we say that, and we leave an open door. And I'll tell you what, man, that's how I've gained, the clients that I've got. They may not hire me until 2 years later. They may not hire me until next year or whatever. But they come back, and that's how you build relationships. And this thing is about social dynamics. This thing is about getting better at business. This thing is about getting better with you. That's why I come to it and speak and support the 21 Convention. If you want to know more about me, let's write this stuff down just so you guys can all visit it. What's funny, my friend from Austria, is this website is actually not up just yet, but will be up fairly soon. And it has like a shitty prototype one, but go to it in a month. It'll be amazing. Thesexuallife.com. There's also my blog, which has been kind of interesting lately. Amazing. TheRedMole.com. And then you can also follow my little spammings out there on Facebook, which is even more amazing. And I somehow managed to piss everybody off on it. But it's in a good way, in the best way, in a way where love happens. My name is Steve Mayeda, and yes, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to be able to help out with the convention, happy to talk to you guys. If you guys want to talk afterwards, if you want to spend one night, or actually a day and a half, so we'll go about 8 hours of getting down nitty-gritty with whatever's going on in your business. There's 3 businesses that I have. I just started some stuff and all sorts of crazy shit, but I like to work personally. If a few of you guys want to get down and work on this stuff and really talk about how we can structure it, work on sales, work on getting high-level clients, work on generating bigger leads, then we can work something out tonight and tomorrow night. Of course, it doesn't conflict with the convention. And I talked to Anthony about it. I said I'd split it with him 50-50, so 50% of this goes to him. This guy does a lot for this, and everybody does. Mike, Peter, Matt, all these guys, they live for this shit. So what I'm offering is, I'm not sure the translation for all this sort of stuff, so I'm going to say, we'll say 300 pounds, and I will give you 8 hours of going over all this material and it will be tonight after the convention, and then tomorrow after the convention, and we'll get down to your business. I prefer to have actually less people than more people, and we can really get into it, and I'll continue afterwards.
There's a room you can use too over here. I just scoped out.
Ooh, room we can use, room we can use. All right, so sound good, guys? Thank you for letting me do this. It's the first speech ever on it. Great.